Go to chapter 12, privatization. So when we talk about privatization, basically we're talking about the transfer of government-owned property, government-owned businesses, government-owned assets to the hands of private individuals or firms. That is privatization. So we go down. What is privatization? Privatization involves transferring public sector resources to the private sector, like I said earlier. So the rest are stories. We don't need to dwell on that. So for privatization to take place, it would have meant that, one, there are different ways. What they're trying to say is that before privatization comes into place, there would have been resources, businesses handled by the government. So because they are being handled by government, now maybe because of inefficiency or because of rapid growth, or government feel it should give these things to the private sector. That is why privatization will take place. So before privatization, they were nationalized. They were all businesses for the government. So now there's change of ownership in terms of the private sector. So the privatization has taken a number of forms in the UK. One, sale of nationalized industries. So one of the ways in which privatization takes place is to sell nationalized industries. Industries are manufacturing companies that manufacture laptops, manufacture these things. They are industries. They are involved, they involved in conversion of raw materials into finished goods. So these industries are controlled by government, but now are in the hands of the private sector. So that's one way in which privatization can take place, through the sale of nationalized industry. Nationalized industries are government-owned industries that have been sold to the private sector. That's one way. Clear. The second one is contracting out. Many government and local authority services have been contracted out to private sector businesses. This is where contractors are given a chance to bid for services previously supplied by the public sector. Examples include the provision of school meals, hospital cleaning, and refuse collection. So when we talk about contracting out, we're talking about contracts that are always being executed by the government. But now, government gives opportunity to the private sector to start bidding for such contracts, like refuse collector. Even in Libya, the refuse collectors, there are some private owned, there are some public owned, right? So if government feel, okay, they want more efficiency, so they give it out, they contracted it out to businesses that can, handle them efficiently. So that is what contracting out is. Contracting out means you gave contracts, projects that is previously being handled by the government to the private sector. That is contracting out. Clear? Yes. The third one, the sale of land and property. So when we talk about sale of land and property, it means government land, government property now being sold out for private use, for businesses use. We might say, oh, this land belongs to the Libyan government. But now the Libyan government wants to sell it to a company so that they can build on it. So that is what they meant by the sale of land and property. So they are all government property. Everything that belongs in the country belongs to the government, but government could sell it out, so that to increase output within the economy. It's the sale of land and property. Clear. All right. So why does privatization take place? Why do we even have to privatize? The first one, to generate income. So governments, we said one ways of privatization is to sell government property, government land. Yes or no? Government businesses. So if we are telling them, government will generate income revenue from it. Yes or no? So government might sell this property, these assets to generate income, which can be used to finance public spending. Okay. So public sector organizations were inefficient. So another reason why, I said earlier that privatization might take place because of inefficiency of the public sector. The public sector is linked with inefficiency, or is expected not to be efficient because of their wages, because of their remuneration, because of their payments. The payments of the public sector, the payments, what they receive in the public sector is not linked, or is not directly linked to their output. So putting effort or not putting effort, you still get the same pay. Do you get it? So they are mostly not efficient because there's no reason, there's no incentive to do more. The salary is fixed. So you put much effort, you put less effort, you still get the same pay. So the incentive is not there. As a result of that, they might not be efficient. And if the workers are not efficient, the output will be less. So there's inefficiency in the public sector, which is the reason why government wants to give it out to the private sector. Because the private sector aim is to maximize profit. And to maximize profit, you have to be efficient. Do you get it? So that's the point they're making there. Any question about that? The third one, to reduce political interference. Government is run, the state or the economy is run by the government. And every now and then, there's always change in governance, yes or no? So if there's always change in governance, it means those that are in charge of the handles of affair of the country, of the parastatals, business property, business companies, they will change too. So if a new president comes today, he would want to put, or she would want to put those he or she can trust. Yes or no? So that means those in the public sector, those directors in the public sector might be changed. So every now and then, for every new dispensation, directors will change, management will change, which is not really good for businesses because there will be lack of consistency. Do you understand? So for this to be avoided, the government would want to put the public sector into the hands of the private sector businesses so that they won't be interfering or being interrupted because of new dispensation or new governance. Do you get it? That's another reason why there's always privatization. So all those strategic businesses will be left in the hands of the private sector. So as soon as new government comes, he or she will not be able to dabble into the affairs of those organizations. Is it clear? So we go down. So that's the case study. Then we go to effects of privatization. Are you there? Privatization has had a big impact in some nations. The effects have been felt in a number of areas, and some evidence suggests that there have been both advantages and disadvantages resulting from privatization. So what are the effects of privatization? When we talk about effects, we're talking about the impacts, positively or negatively. So we're starting with the impact of privatization to consumers. Are you with me? When we talk about consumers, we're talking about the kingpin of any business. Those who buy what we produce. Okay, so let's read. It is hoped that consumers will benefit from privatization. Once in the private sector, businesses are under pressure to meet customer needs and return a profit for the owners. Nationalized businesses, government-owned businesses do not need to satisfy customers. They produce goods and services for the well-being of the society, not just individual customers. So if you are thinking about personalized services, we are thinking about wants, you won't get it from government. Do you get the point here? So as soon as the public sector becomes a private sector or becomes a private setting, then there's always this strive to ensure that consumers are happy, because it's only when they are happy that you'll be able to sell and make profit. Government does not care about this thing. Government is not making profit. Government wants to render service, quality service, that's all, to the citizens. But for the private sector, they invest to make profit. So because they invest to make profit, they want to ensure that consumers are able to get what they want or need at any point in time. So do you get the point there? So as a result of this, privatization will benefit consumers mostly, because one, they are the king of the business, they are the kingpin of any business. Two, they are the one that will buy whatever we are selling. So there's always that pressure on us, on businesses, to ensure that they are producing goods that consumers will buy. If not, they're not going to sell. They will lose out on revenue. That's the first thing. Then, businesses must also make more profit so that they can return investment to shareholders, the owners of the business. The owners of the business do not just want to waste money. They've invested to have a return on their investment. So return on investment is profit. So the more profit businesses make, the higher dividend that will be distributed to shareholders. Do you get the point there? So that's for consumers there. This should mean that businesses will be efficient, try to provide good quality products, charge a reasonable price, and grow. So When you look around all what I have said, it would have meant that businesses will be competitive because they're going to be in a competitive market anyway. They would have to sell a price that will be affordable for consumers. And not only that, they want to do it with efficiency so that they will not run at a loss. Do you understand? That is the point they are making here. And as soon as these things are done, they will want to expand. So consumers are going to be happy, consumers are going to be satisfied because they will be buying affordable goods with quality. And as soon as businesses are able to do this for consumers, consumers will buy, revenue will increase, profit will increase, then the business would also be able to grow or expand. Consumers are there, is it clear? So that's all about consumers. Then the problem about consumer is this. They said, however, consumers have been seeing both improvements and decline in price and services. For example, so when we talk about this, I'm just going to summarize it. The problems in the private sector for consumers are this. In the private sector, businesses want to provide goods and services for those who can afford them. That's the first thing. In the private sector, we might not have this information that would allow us as consumers to maximize our welfare. Do you understand? So the private sector might find a way around it to ensure that we lack specific information about what they do. Do you understand the private sector here? That is the point. Any question about consumers there? So consumers will enjoy quality service, affordable prices, but they might also be losing out on information because this is what the businesses will sell. Is it clear? So go to the workers. Quite often in the run-up to privatization and after an organization has moved into the private sector, quite large numbers of people are made redundant. Although this may reduce cost, many see this as a negative effect. Evidence of this is provided by what happened in the UK after a number of privatizations. Example, we're not going to go into that. I'm going to explain. You know, when the private sector tries to, buy the public sector, they are going to buy the old operations. They're going to buy the old company. Yes or no? Good. So as soon as they buy these operations, they are buying it for one reason, to maximize profit. But it is noted and it is expected of the public sector to lack efficiency. So that means not the public sector in code that is lacking efficiency. The workers in the public sector lack efficiency. So if the workers are lacking efficiency, that means they're not doing well. They cannot work with the entrepreneurs in the private sector. So they will be made redundant. So it is only those that are efficient, that will add value in the private sector that would remain. The rest will be made redundant. So that means privatization sometimes brings about unemployment. Do you get it? That's why they said it brings a negative effect because people will be made redundant. And there's no way they want to be redundant because the business that is the private sector business that is buying the public sector business are going to do the same thing. So they're going to have more workers in each department than what they are supposed to have. So the finance department maybe needs 7 workers, 7 employees. Now with the buying or with the taking over of the public sector, the whole finance department might be having 15 workers, which they might only need 10. So the 5, where are they going to go? Repetition of work, wasting of resources. No, they will be made redundant. So they will what? Unemployment will decrease. Is it clear? So that's for the workers. So there's a mass redundancies often, I'm reading the last paragraph then. Mass redundancies often weaken companies through the loss of experienced staff and make it more difficult and more expensive to scale up in the future. In addition to job losses, in an effort to improve efficiency, many workers may have been pressed into raising their productivity. They might have been forced to adopt more flexible working practices. For example, those who support the process of privatization will suggest that these measures were necessary in order to compete in global markets. However, the impact of many communities of mass unemployment within the UK is still fair today. So, mass unemployment will happen because there's privatization. But those that are efficient, those that are working well, and when, as an employee, when you understand or when you receive news that your company will be sold to a private sector business, you will put more effort so that you won't be part of those that will be made redundant. Yes or no? So the news of taking over, the news of privatization might also give employees the opportunity, might become a motive or incentive for employees to put much effort so that they will be part of those that will continue with the business. That would also increase output. Do you understand for workers here? Yeah. Any question about the workers? For the businesses, once in the private sector, firms are left without government interference and have to face competition. So, for the private sector, in the public sector, there's no competition. And even if there's no, because it's for government. But once you are coming to the private sector, then you are coming to that industry, there's competitiveness, which means you have to fight for your customers. You have to, before you can get a better position on the market, you need to really work hard for it. You need to justify it. So it means competitiveness starts coming in. So you won't have that luxury that you used to have when you are in the public sector. In the private sector, they compete for customers. They compete for revenue. They compete for market share. So there's fierce competition in the private sector. So, which means the objective of the business might change over time. So here they said, the objective have changed. For most firms, profit has become an important objective. For example, okay, when the company was first privatized, okay, so because there's privatization, because it's more of UK, which we don't really need here. So when it comes to privatization, if it was about the public sector, it's about quality service. Now, coming to the private sector, you have to change your objective to become profit maximization. That would be an objective. Do you get it? So for businesses in the private sector, what they mostly do is to change their objectives to ensure that things work well so that they can continue to remain in the market. Because we wouldn't have invested so much in buying the public sector business to lose out or to just run up or to shut down after a year. Yeah. We bought it because we believe it can be competitive. We believe we can make revenue from it. So you have to change the aims and objective of that public sector immediately so that it can be in line with the needs of the society in terms of how competitive it should be so that it can also increase its market share. That's the first thing. They said there have been a number of mergers and takeovers involving newly privatized firms. Well, all in all, with privatization, it brings about diversification. It means by buying, if a business is buying from the government, it's buying a government-owned property or a government-owned business. It's buying it for business purpose, for commercial purpose, to make profit. So whatever it needs to do, it will be able to do it. Unlike when it is restricted to the law, now there's no government interference, there's no government intervention. It is you bought it, you can handle it, you can do it with whatever you want. So that is for the businesses. So the businesses have that liberty to diversify, to find a way of making it profitable with efficiency. That is for the business. Clear? Yeah. Therefore, governments. How will privatization impact on government? One way in which government have been benefited from privatization is the huge amount of revenue that has been generated. However, privatization has been expensive. In particular, the amount of money spent advertising each sales has been criticized. The money spent on television adverts and the rest. So, I'm going to conclude this way. For the government, as soon as privatization takes place, government will generate revenue. That is the point. But before this privatization takes place, government might need to advertise, might need to publicize the sales of these public businesses. So that means government would have been spending money also. Then it might not be able to recruit. Do you understand? So government will spend to make it known to the public that they are selling different parastatals. Government might need to spend on administrative deals, structures, events to ensure that there's a smooth transferring of these public sector into the private sector. So all these things are expensive too. So it means government will be spending on things that it's still going to sell. That is the point there. Is it clear? But at the end of it all, government will be able to generate revenue. And these revenues that are generated would help the society in terms of infrastructure, education, or healthcare. Is it clear? And also with that, government might stop. Well, it depends. If privatization takes place, it can also improve the workforce. It might also improve the skills and the know-how of the workforce, which means the employees in the country might become more skilled because they have to be flexible to be able to work or survive in the private sector. Not like the public sector that nobody cares about what they do. In the private sector, they care about every single thing you do because they have to pay for it. So there's always a motive to do it.
Yeah.
Is government clear?
Yes.
So that's a case study. Oh, we'll go to the multiple choice questions. The first one, which one of the following is a motive for privatization? The motive for privatization.
Improve the welfare.
No, the motive for privatization. The motive for
Increase growth.
no.
Generate money.
Generate money for government. They said, listen, your interpretation of the question is the problem here. What is the reason why government wants to privatize? That is the question. Which of the following is a motive? What is the reason for privatization? Who privatize? Privatization comes as a result of government making decisions to sell off. So one of the reasons why government would want to sell is to generate revenue. Yes or no? Money for the government.
So it's B.
It's B. Is it clear now? Question 2. Many workers suffer as a result of privatization because of which of the following reasons?
Their jobs are at risk.
Their jobs are at risk. Thank you. That ends chapter 12,
Yes.
privatization. So we're going to chapter 13 after this.